So let's have a warm welcome for Western Digital.
David, thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's really great. Well, I got to tell you something. It's great to be home again. I was born and bred in this town on 63 Carmine Street in the village, in the West Village, and lived here most of my life. And now, as David said, we live on top of a mountain, which, lots of bears and deer and stuff like that. But I need to come in and get my fix from Manhattan. You absolutely have to. And it's whether anybody likes it or not, it's the greatest city in the world, and it's just so much fun. A gentleman asked a question, and normally we don't take questions right away, but he wanted to know if I was related to Joe DiMaggio, the baseball player. And the answer to that is, my real name is Sammy Davis Jr., but I changed it because I didn't look too Jewish. So I changed it to Joe DiMaggio. My dad and Joe DiMaggio are second cousins, or were second cousins thrice removed. And my dad was just an absolutely fabulous educator. He had his doctorate degree, went to NYU. I went to his graduation after World War II. Now keep this in mind, I'm only 29 years old. So now you kind of figure that out. This was after World War II. This is going to be an interesting program. The first thing I need to say is, there are times when everything comes together, and this is one of those times. I've been using WD products from the very, very beginning, and I think, and I'm rounding it off because I'm not the greatest person with numbers, but the standalone drives, I think we have roughly, in storage now, we have roughly, I think, 38 or 39 that range from 250 up to one terabyte, and those have been kind of downloaded and retired. The standalone drives, the external drives, or the internal drives, approximately another 40 drives up to 3 terabytes, and all of those drives and the little pocket ones, the little pocket ones, we procure those in increments of 2 or 3 at a time. And what we do is, before the cloud, we would use those and we'd send them to clients, with whatever material they needed. So we just drop them in a FedEx, send it to the client, and the client had everything that he needed. The problem with that is, guess what? They never returned them. So we couldn't even put a deposit on them, say, well, you got to return them. So we bought probably 15 or 20 of those. So WD, I've had no failures except for one drive. It was hit by lightning. Now you got to understand something. Well, you can't, you're kind of pushing the envelope. Everything was backed up in a RAID 5 system, so we didn't lose any zeros and ones. Today, it's all about storage. This is something, there are a few people here that are a little bit older than 20 years old, a couple of people, 1 or 2. And you have an idea that in the digital world, that's really what it's all about. No matter what you do with the camera, whether it's a photograph, whether it's video, whether it's film, whatever it happens to be, it has to be backed up. And it has to be backed up in more than one place. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about a lot of the images that over the years, we're going to go from images that were done a week ago to images that were done 40 years ago. No, I'm only 29. I couldn't do anything 40 or 50 years ago. That makes absolutely no sense. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm astounded and by the way, thank you for coming. Thank you from everybody from WD. Thank you, David. Thank you, B&H, because I'm home again and I'm loving it. And I'm shocked that you all came and signed up, even though it was free, to learn how to speak Italian. Well, no, I mean, that's why we're here, because we're not going to do the photo until next week. So today we're going to do how to speak Italian. So if you just kind of bear with me a little bit, and what you have to understand is, please pay attention, because it's going to be pretty quick. Thank you. Gabish. We were in Italy for about a month, and we were winding up a shoot, And we had packed up, I had 3 assistants with me and security, and we had packed up all the cameras, all the video, everything done, computers, and had nothing in our hands, not a thing. And all of a sudden, we're sitting there waiting for the train to go back to Rome, and I see these 2 gentlemen talking, and I'm looking at them for about 4 or 5 minutes, and I'm going, wow, that would make such a great photograph. And I go, wow, that would really make a great photograph. And I go, I'm an idiot. Get a camera and make the photograph. So we opened up the camera bag, unzipped the camera, took a 300-2.8, put it together, and this took about 5 minutes, went into a vertical and made the photographs. And if I had done it from the beginning, I would have had a short film. If I did it from the beginning, it would have been just awesome. So what does that have to do with WD? What it has to do with is that material is stored on hard drives, and now it's stored on the cloud. And I got to tell you something, a cloud, what the heck is a cloud? I don't know. But you have to know that I now have accessibility if I'm in London, if I'm in, where am I? I forgot where I went. I couldn't even remember where I went. Any place I go, and I'm able to access everything on 3 terabytes. One of the things that I thought were very interesting is the first hard drive we had was 3.5 floppy drive, which I think had held 3 megs of information. The next hard drive we had, which I believe was $300 or $400, was a 50 meg hard drive. We're now shooting individual photographs that are 85 megs each, and it's not uncommon to go out on an assignment or to go out to shoot some photographs and actually generate somewhere in the neighborhood of 14 gigs, 26 gigs. The minute you get into video, you're now astronomical. The numbers just go off the charts. And 1959, I believe IBM made the first hard drive. And if I'm not mistaken, that hard drive was $10,000 a meg. My cloud now is 3 terabytes in the studio, wherever it's go, and then any place where I am in the world. 3 terabytes. The problem with it, it's a fortune. It's just ridiculously expensive. It's $175. I mean, how do you, I mean, you got to be kidding. If you went back, I ran the numbers, I think it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of, I don't know how many billions and billions of dollars by 1959 prices. So it's one of the few things that's cost effective, and it's something that you absolutely have to do. You don't have a choice, you have to do it. So, it's kind of interesting when you live in a particular area. I don't think I went to Lady Liberty until I was somewhere in the neighborhood of about 40 years old. Didn't go to Ellis Island. My first assignment for Ellis Island was for Time magazine, and it was pretty crazy, and absolutely loved it. I was the first photographer there after it had been closed for about 40 years. So this is just kind of a little bit of feel that of the Brooklyn Bridge and the Manhattan Bridge. And then in the evening, never ever, this is the greatest time in the world to shoot right now in December and January. You have clear skies and everything is crisp. You just have to wear layers and carry a good tripod. This is what I love doing, and this is time motion, and it's something that I incorporate in everything that I do. We go out and make sharp photographs. This is a sharp photograph, but it's a combination of movement and exposure, so it's high key. This is what I love doing for myself. This is what I do for Joe DiMaggio. You know, I've been blessed with a lot of friends, a lot of great friends, and Bert Sugar was a great friend for somewhere in the neighborhood of about 40 years. And this is Bert right out of the 1920s. And you go into his office and you'd think it was 1920s all over again. And he worked everything with a number 2 pencil and a magic marker. And I think he wrote somewhere in the neighborhood of about 40 books. And here's Bud Schulberg, and Bud Schulberg, you may remember him, he wrote On the Waterfront and The Harder They Fall, one of the greatest writers. And Bud and I were having lunch one day, and he turned around and he said, "Wow, yeah." He said, "I remember when Scott and I we just got." I said, "Scott?" He goes, "Yeah, Scott." I said, "Who, Scott?" He goes, Scott Fitzgerald. I'm having lunch with a man who had friends with Scott Fitzgerald. Pretty cool. Photography allows you to do that. He was noted for his fedora and his cigar. He also, he would have a drink on occasion. Maybe 12, 15 times a day, but you know, whatever. It doesn't make you a bad person. He called me up and he wanted to do a portrait of him and Lou Albano, the wrestler, for a book that he was doing on wrestling. And he stood there. I said, no, we're not going to do this. We're going to go to Gleason's and we're going to make a photograph the right way. And it was one of my favorite shots. They used it on the cover of the wrestling book. And on my birthday, March 25th, I had called him a week before, so I called him up and I said, Bert, what's going on? And he goes, he says, I was in the hospital in Sloan Kettering and I had some problems. I said, what problems? I didn't know anything about it. And he said, he said, some cancer or something. I said, no big deal. I said, cancer? And he goes, that's not the problem. He says, I was bleeding internally. I said, bleeding internally? He said, that's not the problem. He said, I'm not. I said, that's not the problem. You cancer, bleeding internally. He said, yeah. He said, what they think is that I have terminal acne. I said, what? He says, terminal acne. He says, it's going to kill me, terminal acne. I said, you son of a gun. I mean, it absolutely cracked me up, you know. And we were supposed to have lunch on a Monday, and he died on a Saturday. So we went to the service, and they put his ashes in his humidor. So he got the last laugh, you know. He was that kind of a guy. I've had an opportunity to photograph the Indianapolis 500, I guess, 25 consecutive years. And that doesn't make sense. I started when I was 4. No, that doesn't work. None of these numbers really jive. And again, what I like to do, you know, the rules are you get close, you get even closer. So what we try to do here is take a relatively mundane photograph and shoot it very, very tight at a relatively slow shutter speed and exaggerate the tire. This ran in SI, and this is like right out of another planet when you're very, very close to the action, looking over as they're filling up the automobile. Again, looking to put a dimension onto the photograph. And the way to do that is just to use a slower shutter speed and move with the action. Now, you have to understand something. To plan this shot was extremely difficult. Okay, trying to get that flash to get in my frame at the exact time. That is 1/1000th of a millisecond to do that. But I'm very good. Lucky, hello, you know, that's what it really is all about, being there, showing up and making the photograph. Sports Illustrated selected one of my photographs as the 3rd greatest photograph in the last 100 years taken at the Indianapolis 500. Because I have a very minute ego, I personally thought it should have been number 1, but they said number 3, so who's going to argue with Sports Illustrated? A very dear friend of mine called me up and he said, listen, we want to do a cover on Melissa Etheridge. So I had nothing to do with it except tag along and go to the bottom line. How many people have been to the bottom line? And they closed. So this is just a couple of frames of Melissa. And boy, I didn't even hit the button and it just does what it wants to do. I want to go back. So one of the things you try to do is get as tight as you can and just go for the eyes. Try and keep the microphone out of the frame. Vibrant, you know, when I saw her, the ability to have somebody, she kind of reminded me of Janis Joplin, only a much cleaner, more, you know, Janis was Janis. What can I say? She was what she was. So we'll talk a little bit about action here, mountain bikes. What we're trying to do is come up with a definitive shot. This is, okay, most everything I shoot is backlight. Backlight is, in my opinion, very critical. When you can add the dimension of sun in the frame and make it work as far as the composition, I think that's kind of critical. we're always looking for something that is a little bit different. So what we've done is we've mounted the camera by a jump and taken a remote cord and stood off to one side very low and able to trip it and get the bottom of the bike. What I was looking for was something a little bit different than that. I was looking to get the actual camera under the front wheel. And here was the first attempt to do that. And I'm hanging out the back of a pickup truck with the camera on a Getzo monopod with a cord, a trigger, and just held underneath the bike. It didn't work. But finally, we were able to get underneath the tire. So we're always trying to come up with a variation on a theme and come up with something that the viewer hasn't seen, or a perspective that the viewer hasn't seen. This is an oldie. This is an oldie. Does anybody remember Shirley Muldowny? Okay. She was the first woman to race dragsters. And Sports Illustrated sent me out to do a photograph of Shirley. And the photographs, I spent a week with her. They were dull. They were boring. They weren't very exciting. And I said to her, I said, would you mind if I mounted a camera on the car? She said, you're out of your mind. I'm not going to do that. So I convinced her, and we mounted the camera on the nose of her dragster, and I insisted that everything would be fine. We safety wired the whole thing. And on the first pass, the quarter 20 that it was mounted on snapped. So the camera fell over. The safety wire caught it. Everything in photography is a compromise. That's what this program is about. It caught the camera before it hit the ground at, in this case, it was about 150 miles an hour. It wasn't a full-blown run. If, God forbid, that hit the ground, it would have been the equivalent of a landmine going off, and it would have landed right in her face. So we went back, and she was, to say the least, not very happy with Joe DiMaggio or Sports Illustrated. So we went back and we took the cowling off, and we actually mounted the camera for the go-round on the actual body of it, and then lashed it down, and that's what it looked like. And that's the end result. That's the photograph. Again, we try to come up with something a little bit different.
You go for Pioneer, right? Call it a Pioneer.
Pioneer, yes, Pioneer Radio. This is kind of interesting. This was a recent advertising shoot for a hotel called the Betsy that was originally a World War II barracks, and it now is an $1,100 a night for the small, inexpensive room in South Beach. And so what we did is we put together an ad campaign for them, and we also put together some stuff for the internet. And this is just some excerpts of the Betsy. And that's just kind of a tear sheet that went to the owners. And what I absolutely love about the Betsy is the three owners. One was from South Africa, one was from Botswana, I should say, not South Africa, Botswana, one was from Australia, and one was from New York, and they were all multimillionaires. And they all wanted their car in the front of the hotel. And one had a Ferrari, one had a DB9, and one had a Porsche. So I said, well, listen, guys, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do each car separately, and then you decide which one you want to use, because I don't want to get in that fight with the picking which one. So we set the cars up, and there are 3 signs that say no parking, no parking, no parking, that are sticking up out of the cars. And I'm looking at it, and I said, this is unacceptable. So the owner said, who was an amateur photographer, he said, well, you could Photoshop it. I said, no, you could Photoshop it. I can't Photoshop it. I'm not going to Photoshop it. So he said, well, what do you plan on doing? So I got on the phone. I called the police department. And I said, gentlemen, this is Joe DiMaggio, formerly from Sports Illustrated Time Magazine. What I'd like to do is take the no parking signs down for 2 hours at night. And then I'll put them up at the end of the evening after we finish the shoot. They said, are you crazy? I said, yeah, certifiable is about right. That works. I'm a little crazy. They said, okay, as long as you put them back. So we got the wrenches and we took them down, and the end result was this photo. Now you can imagine it with the three signs. It just kind of wouldn't be the same. So this is the one that I picked with the DB9. I'm sorry?
The pulls out?
Yeah, if you go to the bottom, there are 4 bolts, and you take the bolts out, and then you take the sign out, and we laid them down on the side of the road, and then we just put them back. So it wasn't that difficult. And my Photoshop skills are terrible, so I wasn't going to try and Photoshop it, that's for sure. But that's where we're talking about things that you have to work within certain problems. And you say to yourself, well, I'm never going to be in that situation. But you may be in that situation with your granddaughter. You may be in it with your daughter, with your son, whatever. They're playing soccer, whatever it happens to be. So if you look in the background and you see 15 cars, what you may want to do is reverse your position and go to the other side so you have what we call a clean background. Simple things. You're not necessarily going to take signs down, but you have to figure out how to clean the photograph up. Standardization, simplification, that's really what it's all about. This is a kind of a history lesson for me. The first time that I photographed Ali Frazier, and I couldn't get a press credential. So what I did is I bought a ticket, and I snuck in with a 300-2.8, and I shot the fight from an elevated position. And you can get an idea of, look at the, I mean, 29 years old. Look at the guy with the Honeywell strobe and a Mamiya C22. Ooh, we got a rough idea how old this photo is, huh? The gentleman with the bald head is Tony Triola from Sports Illustrated. Great photographer, great photographer. Joe was kind enough to be part of my film, which is called In This Corner, and we went to Gleason's, and I had an opportunity to photograph him 38 years later. Frazier, beautiful, beautiful person. Okay, you guys remember the Apollo launch, right? This is Arnold Drapkin. He was the director of photography for Time magazine, and I had an assignment for Life magazine, Time magazine, to go down and shoot the Apollo launch. And this is the first time I saw Arnold without a suit on and a shirt and a tie and a vest. And it was just kind of interesting to see him in blue jeans. And if you notice, you see the lump of white with blue jeans in the background? See the person in the background? That's me. That's me. This is Ralph Morse. Ralph, in my opinion, definitively one of the greatest photographers ever to work for Life magazine. And Ralph was, he innovated so many different things on setting remotes all over the Cape. Just amazing. Just to give you an idea of the type of what we call pre-production. So this is all one group. We're all shooting for either Life magazine or Time magazine. And the tripod that's on is a Getzo tripod, which I still use today. Same tripod. It built like an absolute brick. Fabulous tripod. And the end result. We had a couple of people come by and they wanted to know how to get the proper exposure for the rocket. And this was like 4 days before the launch. And I said, well, what you do is you come the night before and NASA just turns up the rocket for us so we could take a meter reading. So you could just wait there and they'll turn the rocket on and you can figure out what the exposure is. Guy's waiting, he's sitting out there going, when are you gonna turn the rockets on? I'm scared you're not gonna turn the rockets on now, that's for sure. Broadway Joe. You know, every once in a while you have to look in the mirror and tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. This is the beginning of my career. There was an art director, and he needed some photos of Joe Namath, and I had just photographed him. And he kind of put me in the right place at the right time. So this is Broadway Joe in the rain. It's all about the eyes. Anytime you're photographing your kids, your wife, your girlfriend, whatever it is, you want to go for the eyes. Gentlemen, never photograph your wife and your girlfriend on the same card. You have to get different cards when you're photographing your wife and your girlfriend. Same thing for the women. Different cards, don't use the same card. Get in a lot of trouble that way. I had the pleasure of photographing Paul Newman approximately 8 or 9 times. And one of the first times was with the Wittington Brothers down in Atlanta, Georgia. And here's Paul, the back of his head. Not very exciting, back of the head. Everything's a compromise. But you don't want to kind of, you don't want to put yourself into the photograph. You don't want to barge in and knock people over. It's not my style, it's not what I do. I'd rather wait for an opportunity, if it's a day, if it's whatever it happens to be. So here's Paul Newman and his magnificent blue eyes. Not, hello, sunglasses. Doesn't help the photograph a whole lot. But, excuse me, Paul, would you take the sunglasses off? I don't think so. No, I would never say that. Oh, we don't have the eyes again. We're getting better, but not quite. We finally got the eyes. It's a compromise. Everything in photography is a compromise. You've got to wait. You've got to be persistent. Pre-production, I don't care what you're photographing. If you're photographing, again, your granddaughter's soccer game, if you're photographing your husband's basketball game, whatever it happens to be, you've got to do pre-production. It's mandatory. Time magazine called me up and they wanted me to do the last F-14 that came off the assembly line. So this was the last Tomcat off the assembly line. And I needed to get something a little bit more than that. So what we tried to do is the powers that be at Grumman would do what we call a stop and go, or pick up the ball as if they were going to land on an aircraft carrier, because that's what the Tomcat was really designed for. So it would come down, slam down, and there was a section there that they had to hit. And if they hit it, then the minute they hit it, they hit both engines and went straight back up. We had to go a little bit more than that. So what we did is we mounted a camera, 2 cameras inside the back of the Tomcat. We're always looking for a photograph that's going to be a little bit more than the client wants, or a little bit more than I want. So you have to push the envelope. The more you push the envelope, the better it is for you. This is kind of interesting. We had a client for about 15 years, Henderson, and we did a very big shoot for them, and maybe I just think of it and it'll just change. I'll just go, change. I don't know. And they wanted smoke, so we gave them smoke. I didn't like the smoke. So they loved this and they put it on the cover and they destroyed the photograph. The photograph, this is the photo. And the art director said, how did you get that light there? Well, what we did is we took a bare bulb, we put it between the 2 models, and by stopping the lens down to f/22, we were able to get the star effect. No filter, that's just what happens. So I just kind of like it without all of the words and stuff. Angelo Dundee, Muhammad Ali's trainer. I photographed him several times for Time magazine, Sports Illustrated, and the New York Times. And Angie, sweet, sweet man, lovely person. And just a couple of grab shots before he was going on to do a program. And loved the guy. And bald guys got to stick together, you know? You've got to do that. Time magazine called me up and they said, we want you to photograph Henry Kissinger. And I'm in a pair of blue jeans with a jean shirt and a bandana. And I'm going, yeah, man, I would love to do that. And I look in the mirror and go, this is not going to work. So we broke out the Brooks Brothers suit, the double Windsor knot, the vest, the wingtip shoes, real socks, real socks? Not the, barefoot, but real socks. And got a haircut, took my ponytail and had it put with a, whatever. What do you call those things? Bobby pin. So I tucked that in. And went to see Dr. Kissinger. And we show up, 5 people, we show up, and gentleman comes down directly across the street from the Waldorf Astoria, comes down, and he's wearing a very long coat. Inside, a little strange. It was a beautiful day. And he said, Mr. DiMaggio? I said, yeah, you can call me Joe. He goes, Mr. DiMaggio? I said, okay, Mr. DiMaggio. He said, you can come up now, but only you. None of these other people can come up. They don't have any security clearance. They can't come up. And I said, oh. I said, but they have the equipment, the lights, the strobes, everything else. Well, no, just you. So I said, well, you know, we gave them a list of what we wanted to do. And he took his hand and he went like this. And there was a machine gun. I said, okay. Yeah. Anything that has lots of bullets, I go, yes, absolutely. We don't argue with anything that has lots of bullets. So we went up, and he took me into what they call an anteroom, and the room had a red rug with crushed red velvet walls and a red ceiling, and a gold, what do you call those things? You're hired. Chandelier. And they said, Dr. Kissinger will be out. You'll have 2 minutes. I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, you're going to photograph him here for 2 minutes. I said, I can't photograph him here. He goes, why not? I said, it's red, 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 and gold. I said, do you know what he'll look like in this photograph? This is before Photoshop. This was a bada bing, you know. I said, here, you can't do this. I said, I need to get into his office. You can't get into his office. So what I had done is I had gone out and I had procured his book. And he walks in, and I said, 2 minutes. I said, Dr. Kissinger, I said, I know we only have 2 minutes. I said, but before we start, I said, I'd like you to take a look at, would you sign my copy of your book? And he said, you've got my book? I said, yeah. And I had taken the book and I ruffled up the pages and, you know, got it like that and mushed it and dragged it. And he goes, yeah, come on into my office. So we went into his office an hour and a half later. And that's the book. I took it down for B&H. It was in my library, and he autographed it to me. Again, you have to be flexible. You have to be flexible. It's just, most of you are not professional photographers, but as amateurs, you have to be flexible. It's really critical. Thank God this is not a Glock or a 45. Believe me, people, this would not be good. Okay. Wait until you think it's funny. You're going to be up here soon. I'm getting off. A very dear friend of mine, Bill Shatner, he was my co-host on the Canon photo safari. And we spent a lot of time in Israel, and we had a grand old time. And he is a lunatic when it comes to cars and when it comes to horses. So this is just a few frames of him. This is in Israel with, I think, a 35 to 350. And that's me and him together. This is him. He's a reining specialist. That's the name of the event. And he's quite good at it. This is Joanne and Liz, myself and Bill. We went racing Formula Mazdas. And this is a part of a TV show that we did, a pilot called Vagabonds, and we're with the mayor of San Francisco. Tough guy, tough guy. Okay. Yeah. No, really, you gotta be kidding me. No, I can't deal with that right now. I'm on my way out. I've got an appointment and I can't change it. I understand what you're saying. You want me to go? Sure, I'll go on the computer. You know what? You know, computers are amazing. You're right. There is a storm coming in. You know, there's a storm coming in. You're really right, but I got a funny feeling that, you know what? According to the computer, it's going to pass. I think the storm will pass. Well, okay, so maybe it won't pass. My experience has been that you need a clean cell phone, you need everything clean, this will do it. Look in front of the camera, why don't you? When you don't live in Manhattan, you have to just improvise, you know what I'm saying? You absolutely have to improvise. Okay, let's X out of this. Told you everything is a compromise in photography. We worked a year trying to get permission to put a camera on a umpire's head to photograph not only the 9 baseball players at the game, but also the batter. And what happened was, the day we went to do it, the umpire changed his mind. Is we sat down with the umpire in the dressing room and we negotiated from 2 cameras on top of his head to 1, and instead of 9 innings, 3 innings. So again, it was a what? A compromise on my part, a compromise on the umpire. Without the umpire, I can't make the photograph. The availability of using your head and just coming up with a variation on a theme. What I call it is standardization and simplification. Keep it very simple, and pre-production is absolutely a key. This particular program, I put a lot of pre-production into, and you have to do that if you expect it to work. You just can't walk in cold and expect everything to just happen for you. It's kind of critical that you do that. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Been photographing Formula One for 47 years. I'm only 29, it doesn't make any sense. And this is the current world champion and the last world champion for 4 years in a row, Sebastian Vettel. Just a few frames. The eyes are what it's all about. It's all about the eyes. Here, brand new racetrack, he ran over wet paint. They were still painting, pre-production. They didn't finish the track in time, so he ran over green paint and it came onto his car. This is my favorite photograph of him. It's all about the eyes. Everything there is what it's all about. Do you remember him? What a piece of work. We've run into each other 3 or 4 times over the last years. And if you wait long enough, he'll give you the photo.
Bada bing.
Bada bing. This is my first venture into Photoshop, the very first time. This is one of my assistants, Leanne, at the U of A, and she's riding a motorcycle. I'm in a rent-a-car hanging out the window photographing her, and then I decided to do this shot. Pretty good shot. And then we Photoshopped it. I didn't Photoshop it, I had it done. I don't want to lie to you. Pocono 500, we do a workshop there. By the way, anybody who wants to sign up, go on our webpage and you can sign up for our workshops. This is the GoPro. In my opinion, I'm addicted to this camera. I think I've purchased more GoPros than I've ever purchased anything. I buy them 3, 4 at a time. You gotta love them. I'm sorry? They don't break at all. I put them in minus 15 degrees underwater through the ice. You can't break them. I heat them. You can't. They're like tanks. You can't. Oh, they're fabulous. I spent a lot of time, timing the exhaust burn on the unused gas. It's very hard to do. Oh, unused gas. I know all about that too. I went to a Mexican restaurant last night. Unused gas. Oh. Okay. This is a very interesting. Remember, photography is a compromise. This is Mike Tyson. You probably have heard of Mike Tyson. And this is a portrait I did of Mike Tyson. And I was supposed to have 1 hour with Mike Tyson at 5 a.m. in the Plaza Hotel. I got there at 2:30, set up the studio, set up the lights, got everything ready. And Mike didn't want to be photographed except for 60 seconds. And because Michael Spinks, who was supposed to be with him, didn't show up. So we had photographed Spinks separately. And this is Spinks with my son Dylan. And so basically the gentleman came by and said, okay, you have 60 seconds to make the photograph. So I said, well, no, you have to understand something. We made a deal that we would get an hour. He said, 58, takes out a watch, goes 57. I said, I'm not explaining myself. He goes 56. And at that point I said, maybe I better start making some photographs. So I made this photograph and the first photograph, and by my standards, it was very dull and boring, and it wasn't a great photo. So I took 20 seconds and I walked over to Mike and I whispered in his ear, I said, Mike, I said, are you upset that Spinks didn't show up? He goes, upset? You better blank, blank, blank believe I'm blank upset. He goes, I'm more than upset. I said, well, how upset are you? He says, I just told you, I'm blank upset. I said, well, if you're that upset, would you scream? And he goes, yeah, I would. That photograph put my son through college. One frame. That was the last shot, and it was actually the only shot. The rest of them were very boring and dull and, okay, seen it before. That shot made it. The Betsy 2, watch very carefully. The owner of the Betsy said, I want to do this photo, but we're going to hang a piece of art there. I said, well, where's the piece of art? He goes, it's not ready yet. So I said, we'll make it ready. So we made it ready. We dropped it in Photoshop. Jerry Cooney, Larry Holmes. This is Jerry beating me up. This is when my beard was darker. Jerry did not want to go to the studio in Manhattan, so we photographed him on the island. And because he was 6'7" and a half, he had to do it on pillows, kneeling, because he was hitting the ceiling with his head. So he wasn't happy about that. This is him fighting Larry Holmes. And this is the portrait we came up with. And unfortunately, this was the end of his career. He walked into my office, and that was hanging behind my desk. He walked over to it, and he looked at the photograph this far away, and he went like this. So I put my hand on his shoulder. I said, Jerry, you didn't see the punch coming. I saw it. Really? Then why didn't you duck? This is just one of my assistants, very pretty young lady who just moved to Berlin. And just some high-key photos. I love this country, and I have the utmost respect for it. This is a cover, a magazine cover. That photo has been photoshopped. The others are all done in camera, no Photoshop. The original photo was not photoshopped, but the client wanted a blue background. I didn't have it with blue, so it got photoshopped in blue. That's Joanne. She's quite the athlete. This is this was an award-winning photograph for HBO on 357 children that were killed with handguns. And they asked me to do it. And again, that's all done in camera. And that's a real 357 Magnum. No Photoshop. Lady Liberty. Does anybody know about the movie Rush? Well, we were there for the real McCoy. This is James Hunt, and that's Reutemann, and that's a shunt, an accident at Long Beach. This is Niki Lauda, the real Niki Lauda, the real James Hunt. Again, even in those days, this was in the 70s, we went for the eyes. Always looking for the eyes. James Hunt died at 43 from a heart attack. That's 100 years ago. I'm one of the luckiest people in the world. I've met so many great, great people. And this is a good friend of mine. His name is Paul. And this is a portrait I did of Paul, and something that I just, no rhyme, no reason, just did the portrait, and I just kind of loved it. And he was one of the most influential people in my career, and also one of the most, one of the greatest ad men around. And he asked me if I could photograph chocolate chip cookies. And I said to him, sure. And then I found out, I did some research before the internet, that there were specific photographers who photographed chocolate chip cookies. I didn't know that. And I found out that not so easy to photograph. So we were able to photograph the Chips Ahoy super chunky. They got palm oil. Don't eat these things. This is a high-key shot of Paul. I just love it. It's intentionally overexposed and it's intentionally soft. Joanne thought I was crazy to show it to you. I like it, so sorry. Anybody know who this is? Paul is a world-class artist. I forgot to mention that. He's a world-class artist, and he did a portrait of me. And in turn, I did a portrait of him. Willie Nelson. I photographed Willie about 9 times, and every time I'd see him in his dressing room at the end of the night, he'd say to me, I'll see you on the road again. And I didn't think anything of it. And the next time I'd see him, he says, I told you I'd see you on the road again. And yeah, if you ever invited into Willie Nelson's dressing room, you need to bring a napkin, a mask, especially if you're going to drive home. Because if you don't, you're going to drive home and it's, Willie, it's going to be on the internet. Joking, Willie, it was chocolate milk and tea. Wide angle, I was shooting from backstage behind him. Genuinely a beautiful, beautiful, he's the real McCoy. And he would talk to, we were shooting him one time, and somebody was talking to, was giving somebody, a vet, a hard time in a wheelchair. And he stopped the concert and he says, bring him up here. And he brought him up on stage and put him on stage and then wheeled him back to his dressing room. He's the real McCoy, real guy. This is an assignment I did for Sports Illustrated. This was the longest editorial assignment I've ever done. This was 3 weeks. These are 3 brothers who inherited $900 million. I wrote it down. And I put the commas in and then I checked it. I go, that's almost $1 billion. I had to get in a P-51 fighter, so they removed the radio and I sat back there. I should mention, I'm deathly afraid of heights. But here I am in the back of the P-51. You can actually tell how much fun I'm having. I mean, there is a man who loves what he does and is just having a grand old time. Don't you think? I was dying, believe me. And it took 2 hours to get the green out of that in Photoshop. That was green, it was. But I took the green out because it didn't look very pleasant. When we got in, the pilot, Wildman, his name was Wildman, and he said to me, now listen, he said, you see these 2 cotta pins, they're this big. He said, if we have to get out of the plane, he says, I'll pop the canopy, I'll get out of the plane, and all you have to do is pop these 2 rings, push the seat forward, and get out. So I said, where am I going? I said, I don't have a parachute. He said, well, I think you should get out of the plane. And I said, are you crazy? I mean, I need a parachute to get out of the plane, That's his brother. That's the 3 of them together. This is, I shot Nikon from 1959 to 1984. And Nikon, great camera. Canon, great camera. Sony, great camera. They're all good. You cannot buy a bad camera. You cannot buy a bad lens. Impossible. Can't do it. It's impossible. Can't do it. So you could see this is a Matthews suction cup, and we mounted the camera on top of the 3 Porsches that he had Dr. Porsche build for him. And that's at Road Atlanta. They had no place to race the cars, so they bought it. They bought the track. Makes perfect sense to me. You got $900 million. Why not? We had to do a portrait of him at the end of the shoot. And it was a miserable day in Fort Lauderdale, and I didn't like the photo, so they had a fire truck. So I asked the firemen if they could wet down everything. So we wet everything down so there was a reflection, and I kind of liked the photo. This is a plane that I was on, and he blew the head gasket, and he blew 2 pistons in the Rolls-Royce engine. And sure enough, we had to get out relatively quickly. And he got out, and I got out, and when I got out, I hit the wing, and it went straight down, straight up, camera in my hand, and landed on my derriere. Because the wheel, yeah, well, it's a Mustang, P-51 Mustang, and because the wing was covered with oil. This is just fun stuff, time motion. This is a small tunnel where I mounted the camera on my car, then mounted the camera on my truck, then mounted my camera on the other car, and the other car. So. No, these are full frame. These were Canon, I think 5Ds and Canon. What was before the 5D? I forget.
7D.
No, it was before then. What the hell was this?
7D.
I don't know, but it was before then. But yeah, these are mounted to the frame on a piece of metal. This is shooting inside the automobile, the Pocono 500, and photographing the other car. So you try and get the driver, the communication from the driver, and also now we're sticking out of the car, just trying to come up with a different frame. Everything's a compromise. I made my first snapshot when I was 9 years old, and I don't know if this is true or not, and I don't want to mislead you, and I don't want to have any egotism here. I think this is the first photograph I ever took. Everything up until that point was a snapshot, and this was done in Cape Cod, and again, one frame. This is a young man. The tear is really what it's all about. And again, one frame, not 75 frames, but one frame. This is an interesting story. Does anybody know who this is? You see her every Sunday. Pardon? Leslie Stahl. I did the first cover on Leslie Stahl in the 70s, and went to her office and flew down to Washington, D.C. Can I go here? Went to Washington, D.C. and got there, and she kept me waiting for an hour, called 2 hours, 3 hours, and got there at 8 o'clock. And finally, I called up and spoke to the secretary, and I said, listen, I've been here 3 hours. That's a little much. And they said, well, there's a problem. I said, what's the problem? Well, she doesn't like photographers. So I said, okay. I said, then tell her I'm a gynecologist. I said, whatever, what do you want me to say? I said, well, I'm here and I'm getting paid for the day and I don't want to go back to New York without the photograph. So with that, I said, could I just come up without a camera and speak with her? So I left everybody downstairs, the assistants and everything, went up, and she was sitting there, and she said, listen, I have a problem. I said, what's the problem? She said, every photographer I've ever worked with has been rowdy, nasty, abrasive, and they don't make me feel well. So I said, okay. I said, how do you know that I'm going to be the same way? Well, I don't, but I just presume you're all the same. I said, no, I don't think everybody is the same. I think everybody is different. And if you've had a bad experience, I'm sorry you've had a bad experience. So she said, well, I can't shoot now. It's time to go to lunch. She said, would you like to join me for lunch? I said, sure. So I took one camera, one lens with a 180, and we went to lunch, and she went to an outdoor bistro in Washington, D.C., and when she sat down, she held court. And 9 or 10 politicians were sitting around, and they all came over and started to talk to her. And they were plying her with niceness so she would be nice to them on the news. So I excused myself and I left, and I went to the men's room, walked out of the building, went out onto the street, walked down, went to the bushes, and took 4 frames. That was one of them. We got back after lunch, we went back to her office, and she said, well, I guess you could photograph me. I said, not necessary. She said, what do you mean? I said, I don't think it's necessary. I said, I've got to get back to New York. So she said, no, you can photograph me. So we went through a pseudo, a couple of photos. And when she saw the cover, she called me and she said, can I order 1,000 photos? I said, yeah, no problem. It's all about, being able to be flexible. This is Harry Chapin. Harry lived very close to me. The long and the short of it is I did a story on him. And again, very similar to Willie, real person, no ego, regular guy. And the man is just amazing. He gave away so much money. He worked for free most of the time. And he gave so much money to hunger children. Just one beautiful guy. Unfortunately, we know what happened to Harry through no fault of his own. That's his son, Josh. This is Waddell Brody. Did a film on Brody called It's All Real, and The Truthful One, and Never Give Up. 3 different little short stories. And Brody is his cousin was Ella Fitzgerald. God, I always forget that. I put it in there. I have no reason. I liked it. Again, no reason. I liked it. Action. This is 400-5.6, a lens that most people say you couldn't shoot action with. You can use any camera with any lens to shoot anything you want, and you have to show up for it. You have to be motivated to do it, and you have to know what your light is, and you know what your exposures are, and how to take care of your shutter speeds. The biggest advantage of digital photography is the fact that you can load a camera with Kodachrome 1 all the way up to 3,200, 6,400, 25,000, and the new digital cameras are just amazing, totally amazing. You could shoot pitch dark. Yes, my dear. Shutter speed on this is 1/8,000th of a second at 5.6 at ISO 1000. Good question. This is also digital, and this is about 1/1500th of a second at f4. Cricket 2, yep. Taken from the bow pulpit. This is a film I was asked to be in called Lights Out. And I don't know if you saw it, it was on FX. And they needed some idiot to play photographer ringside. So they got me. I figured, well, I've shot enough heavyweight fights and stuff, I can do that. And it was a great experience. This is a photograph that was done for, do you remember? AT&T. God, the people who brought me my iPhone that doesn't work. And it had to be delivered on the day my son was born. Only I didn't know he was going to be born that day. Had to drive it to LaGuardia and put it on a Delta Dash. In those days, we didn't have drop boxes. We didn't have clouds. You had to go to the airport with the photograph and put it in the belly of the plane. And that sold for a lot of dinero. This is Gatti, a brilliant fighter. Unfortunately came to not a good end. This is what we call shooting from the inside out. Again, 1 frame and a 16mm lens. Time magazine sent me to the new Giant Stadium, and I made this photo. And then I couldn't believe they knocked it down. I mean, it's not that photo is not that old. Hockey? Is Maurice here? Oh, hockey. We spent a lot of years photographing hockey. Know who that is? Martin Sheen, yeah. On a picket line in Malibu. A friend of mine married this gentleman, a Marine, and we did a portrait of him for, who did we do that for? You don't remember? Yeah, we did it. This is one of my favorite photos. We were waiting for 2 models at the U of A at sunset, and they never showed up. So my assistant and his girlfriend were there, and I looked over, and they were getting ready to kiss, and I took 1 frame. 1 frame. And I love the heart in between the 2 of them. Lady Liberty. I love Lady Liberty. This was done for MSNBC or whatever it is, but it's a bull and a bear. Done in camera, no Photoshop. In camera, no Photoshop. This is at about 50,000 feet, a multiple exposure of the moon and the sunset. South Africa, we spent a lot of time in South Africa working on a film for Discovery, and which I directed and Joanne produced. And this is a photo done with a 600 f4. And again, one frame, that's it, one frame. A lot of frames of the wave, one frame of the bird, the seagull. This is Willie T. Ribbs, mounted the camera inside the car. Notice you see his feet, his hands, his arms, everything. So again, this is a 15 millimeter lens, so you can see everything that's happening within the automobile. And he actually tripped it for me. He had a device which we put onto his steering wheel, so he fired it for me. One of my assistants. This was an award-winning photograph for Xerox, and it was called Team Xerox. And everybody is dressed up in suits and they're sculling. This was an extremely difficult shoot, and it was extremely difficult. We wound up hanging over extension wires on a fire, not a ladder, but a, what is it called? Cherry picker. Thank you, cherry picker. This is my Papalupus. His name is Ace. And we used to go out for a lot of walks together. We still do. And he would run and run, and I just absolutely love the photograph. Dogs are just so much fun. Had a 71 Chevelle convertible, mounted the camera on the side of the automobile in the back, and brought the camera around the front and made a turn, and just kind of a pretty shot. This was done in Tucson, Arizona. We mounted the camera on a Land Rover and just put, this is before the days of GoPro, this is a full-blown camera with a 16 millimeter lens, and the camera was put into a hermetically sealed box which cost, I think, $4,000, $5,000. Wrong again. It was in a Walmart bag with duct tape around it. Who could afford a box like that? So we just put it in a bag, we duct taped everything except the front element of the lens, and then after every shot we would clean the front element of the lens. But if I could have a hermetically sealed box, it could be okay too. This was done in London. No, it wasn't. It was done in Paris. I just was seeing if you were paying attention. And that's an artist's studio and the Eiffel Tower. This was a photo that scared the living out of me, and this was done at Ellis Island. And if I understood correctly, there was nobody there for about 30 years. And I was the first photographer allowed on Ellis Island. And it was eerie. It was very frightening, but an awful lot of fun and great photos to be had. This is a model. We went out to dinner one night in the village, and she stopped to kiss her boyfriend. They're both from Italy. And again, one frame. I wish I took 12 frames, but I took one frame. And the snow's coming down. It's just very pretty. Anybody know who this is? Yuri Foreman, correct, Yuri Foreman. Yuri is a 154 champion, and he lost his title, and he's now making a comeback. And I just kind of love the light on him. We just lit him in a way that was just very simple and very elegant. I'm sorry.
Can I just ask about the lighting? Was it 2 lights?
2 lights cross and in black backgrounds. Yeah, they were both crossed this way. Yes. One was 100% and one was about 25%. So they both were not equal. And they're hot lights. They're not electronic flash. This is Mary Travers, one of my first major assignments, and a woman I absolutely loved. Simple, clean, elegant. Simple, clean, elegant. Just simple. That's it. You don't have to get fancy. Just a big snowfall and just a little tiny barn. Very simple, and just a kind of a bizarre composition. Another favorite of mine, this is a more recent photo taken, I guess, last year. And while I was on a walk with my puppy. And again, one frame, bang. You only get one shot at stuff like this. I don't know what to say about this. This is one of my favorite photos. It's very simple, very clean. And thank you. The question is, the statement is, it looks like a painting. And thank you. This was done a quarter of a block from the Picasso exhibit on what street? It was in Soho. I'm trying to think of the street. And we were waiting for the exhibit to open. And just by shooting a high key and moving the camera, slow shutter speed, it just kind of fell to places for me. I don't know if anybody knows, but we're doing a trip to Cuba on January 14th to the 21st. And it's a people-to-people venture, and it's all about meeting artists, painters, writers, poets, photographers, sculptors, etc. And it's sold out, so you can't go. Except 2 people just went, and they are not going because they just got a promotion and they're moving to Hong Kong. So we have 2 seats left. If anybody wants to go, you will never forget it. It'll be great. So we've got 2 seats left. Sights Unseen DVDs, 2 award-winning DVDs. They're here if anybody wants them. They are amazing DVDs. They're great teaching. They're all about photography. They're all about travel. They're all about rules and how to break rules. And anybody who procures one, that means buy it. If you buy it and you don't like it, you keep it. Send me an email, say I don't like it, and we'll send you your money back. So you get the DVD, and if you don't like it, you get your money back. And any of the proceeds that come from that go to a nonprofit organization called My Beer Fund. I don't drink beer. No drinko beero. Don't drink beer. Not happening. I'm in the light, so I can't drink beer. In the dark, I could drink beer, but not in the light. So what we do is we put the money to our films, which is nonprofit. So take my word for it, they're nonprofit. Oh God, they're nonprofit. Okay, WD, absolutely, and I mean that too. All right, here we go. Your mother asked me to show you some of the strokes that we're doing, and I slowed it up in the computer so you can see it. And to be honest with you, you're making an awful lot of mistakes, especially in the crawl. And I think you really need to work on it. Absolutely, you need to work on it. Absolutely. Maybe I need to work on it. Do you think I can expense this, please? This is a young man who is training for the next Summer Olympics, and he lives very close to me, and he is totally dedicated to going out and being a participant in the Buenos Aires Games. And his work schedule, his work ethic is absolutely amazing. And this was all done with 2 GoPros. And I made a little stand for it, and one is shooting stills and the other one is shooting video. I don't get paid by any camera manufacturer, and certainly not GoPro, that's for sure. They wouldn't give me a mouse pad. But I gotta tell you something, if you wanna have absolute fun, just total fun, you've got to get your hands on a WD hard drive, or 2 or 3 or 4, and a GoPro. It's all good. First of all, it's good to come home again. It's been a lot of fun. There's no audience in the world like a New York City audience. They're the best in the world because it's the best city in the world. And it's great to see all of my old friends here and my new friends here. And I'd like to thank you so much. And I'd like to thank B&H, and I'd like to thank David and all of the lovely people at WD for allowing me to come in and having a great time. So thanks an awful lot, and hopefully we'll see you on the road again. So thank you.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City Superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.